Hi, I'm Gina. Welcome to this astrology report. I'm excited to be talking with you today. Today is May 8th, 2024, just after the Taurus new moon. We're really within the Taurus new moon still. It just occurred just moments ago, really. Welcome to my channel if you're new, and welcome back if you're returning. I'm excited to speak with you today. And I sort of decided to do this report a little bit spontaneously. This Taurus new moon has been talked about so much as being such a positive, such positive astrology and opening up such a positive period. I think it has something to do with the fact that we had such intense eclipses and even the Scorpio full moon, which was our last lunation. And it's very positive astrology, but it's also the contrast with what we've been coming from. And there's a lot to this Taurus new moon. I don't think that it makes sense to sum it up as easy and calm and wonderful and blissful and happy. And if it's not going the way that you had hoped, or if we're deeper into May and some of the positive astrology that you've been hearing about connected with May isn't going the way you'd hoped, that can be upsetting. It can be a little bit of a bummer. And there's a little bit more to it than meets the eye. So I wanted to discuss that. So that's the first thing we'll discuss. We'll discuss if this new moon isn't going as hoped. And beyond that, if Taurus season or May 2024 sort of isn't going the way that maybe you'd hoped, given all of this positive astrology that's been reported. So first I want to talk about that. Connected with that, I also want to talk about some of the aspects specifically that are related to this new moon. I will use this chart and I might draw on it here. Let's add a little design. Let's add a little note to focus us in on this Taurus new moon. This is where we are right here. Here's our Taurus new moon. I actually don't like that. I need it to be thinner so that we can still see everything in the chart. There we go. And then I'll make it big again. So I'll be using this chart to help us talk through everything I'm going to discuss. But we are focused primarily on this Taurus new moon. So I'll also discuss some of the aspects that are occurring during this time that I think are playing into this. Then I want to talk just a little bit more about sort of the role of astrology in our lives, and what I've taken from that as I've gone through working with astrology pretty intensely in my own life, really for about 25 years, but especially in the last 10. And then we'll have some time for discussion and Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions or comments, please go ahead and add them now. I wanted to do this live so that it could be interactive and we could go back and forth a little bit. So please feel free to comment, and also feel free to leave any questions there. How is Taurus season going for you? How is this new moon going for you? How are you doing sort of grappling with the fact that, you know, while the astrology is smooth, it might not always feel smooth. That's definitely a part of what I want to talk about today. And then at the very end, I'll go through and I'll look at those. I'll look at those questions and we'll go through them. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump right into it by talking about if this new moon isn't going as hoped. There has been so much reporting about this new moon that's occurred last night. If you're watching this on May 8th live with me, it occurred on the evening of May 7th. Depending on where you are in the world, it may have been early on May 8th. But there's so much positive stuff here. You know, I actually want to delete this. I want to do something different that makes it a little bit easier to see. I'm going to use a magnifier to sort of highlight this part of the chart. We're focused, for right now, we're focused in on this Taurus sector of the chart. I will discuss some aspects that it's making too, but for right now, let's just look right here. So much has been talked about that's positive, right? First of all, we have Jupiter and Venus sort of framing the house. These are the two benefic planets. They're positive, helpful, harmonious, easy planets. We have a new moon. The moon is exalted in Taurus. The moon loves to be in Taurus. And a new moon is a new, fresh start, right? We also just had this sort of rare aspect of the Uranus Jupiter conjunction that only occurs every 14 years or so, and that was bringing in all this good luck. And you may have heard these things on my channel and on other channels, and they're all true. So first of all, just the pressure of positive astrology can be tricky, right? We look to astrology for some sort of guidance in our lives, some sort of warnings, some sort of roadmap, perhaps. I think astrology is really sort of best used as a tool for introspection. You know, when we examine our own natal chart, or even the way that the current transits are impacting our natal chart, it can be such a tremendous opportunity for introspection. But sometimes we can't help but see, ooh, that looks like that's going to be a little tricky, or ooh, that looks like that might be kind of easy. And that can be helpful. And this was actually part of the reason, right, that astrology was initially cultivated in ancient times, because especially by the Stoics in Greece and in Hellenistic times, in the Hellenistic world, which is the kind of astrology that I practice, the Stoics really sort of developed this type of astrology and began to utilize it partially to give them a little bit of a heads up about what was coming so that they could be prepared, right? If you see something sort of difficult ahead, a little bit easier to be stoic against it and less surprised when it comes. And same for the good, right? Like, excuse me, drinking my coffee while we talk. Same for good stuff. Being like taking the middle road, being equanimous. Is that the word? Am I saying that word right? Equanimity, finding that point of equanimity, balancing between the good and the bad and not being too rattled by either, being sort of smooth, means that even when those really good things come, they wanted to be stoic too, and kind of ride that middle wave as much as possible, not being geared by too much of the others. But when we see what's coming and that it looks easy, there can be an anticipation to that sort of sets us up, right? So I just want to acknowledge that. And as astrologers too, I think we try to be positive. We want to be positive. We're not trying to say, oh, this is so dire, this is so awful, right? Nobody wants to spread fear or anxiety. So when there's astrology that is especially positive like this, you'll see a lot of people really lean into it and will emphasize the stuff about it that feels fun and positive and easy, because that's the kind of light that we're hoping to spread. And we might sort of minimize some of the things about it that might be a little bit more challenging, like this recent Pluto retrograde, for example, or just the nature of Taurus and how it doesn't like to change. So I just wanted to acknowledge that as well before I get into it specifically, that, you know, I do think astrologers, and I'm guilty of this myself. I don't know if guilty is the right word, but you know, we want to, we don't want to spread fear. We want to spread positivity. So looking for highlights in the chart is something that makes a lot of sense. Just the same way that we look at our life and we try to appreciate what's good and we try to focus on what's good. It makes sense to do that when you're looking at a chart too, but it can mean sometimes that the positive can be overemphasized or maybe a little misunderstood. So this Taurus season, this positive Taurus season with all those different aspects that I just mentioned, it is good, but it's not simple. Okay, first of all, Taurus does not like change. Taurus does not like change, even for the good. So when I read natal charts, I look at where someone has Taurus in their chart, and I know that that's a place where they resist change, even if that change is for the good. So A change will feel hard and jarring and difficult, even if really you're making progress. Okay, so if you are having a hard Taurus season, or your Taurus new moon didn't go sort of as you'd hoped or as predicted, if something feels a little off, can you think about the way in which the life area that's being affected is a place where it's hard for you to change? And so, even though this thing is happening, it might feel difficult, but actually, it's for the good. You know, there could be some loosening there. Um, Uranus, it doesn't feel easy and is the opposite of not liking change, right? Uranus loves change. Uranus is like, I'm going to come in and shake you up. I'm going to do something quick. I'm going to do something fast. I'm going to make something happen right now. Um, you know, there's a storm and some trees come down. There's you get some sort of news. It's stuff that happens quickly. So that is naturally at odds with Taurus. And that's been the case for a while. And now that Uranus is being extremely activated by everything that's going on. So if things aren't quite going the way that you hoped, did something sort of sudden happen, maybe, or something surprising? And really, it's kind of for the good, but it just doesn't feel like it because this is a place where sometimes change is a little bit harder or feels a little bit more difficult. I also want to say that there really is some positive stuff here, and it will come through and it will come out, but it doesn't always happen right away, right? We have to remember that if the Taurus new moon occurs on May 7th, it's active, incredibly active for the next 4 weeks, really for the next 2 weeks, and really for the next 6 months, right? This is a very long term transit. And it's even longer when we think about the Uranus Jupiter conjunction that happened just a couple of weeks ago, which is opening up a 14-year cycle, right? So just because that positivity, that ease, that goodness hasn't popped up yet, maybe you're in a period where you're moving closer toward it, and eventually you'll see how this change, this surprise, maybe, this newness, this new start felt difficult sometimes along the way, but ultimately was so for the good and brought in more ease and harmony and peace at the end of the day. Okay, let's talk about some of the specific aspects here. Because I think that that's important. I am going to take away, oh, I never made it big again. I apologize. It would have been easier for you to see it if we had a big chart that whole time I was talking. But we're back now. There's a few aspects I want to discuss. First of all, this Pluto retrograde. Okay. We've had Pluto retrograde in Aquarius for not the first time, because it did happen before, but Pluto had only been, over the summer when Pluto first moved into Aquarius as a part of this cycle, but it was only at the 0 degree point. So the way that I had described that was Pluto moved into Aquarius, that it's sort of like, I like to think of the different houses like as actual different houses. I find that helpful. So imagine that Pluto left his house and he went to another house, but he didn't even get out of the car, right? He didn't even get out of the driveway. Maybe he walked to the front door at most and then got back in his car and went back home, right? So that very first one where Pluto only went to 0 degrees and then turned around and came back, I almost don't really feel like it counted. I don't know a lot of people who really felt that energy too much. You may be able to look at this Pluto and Aquarius story for you and see the way in which it was opening something up right there very initially. But for the most part, probably you haven't been feeling it until the last couple of months. Now Pluto's sort of really into the sign, right? We're at this 2 degree point. But Pluto stationing retrograde, turning retrograde for the first time in Aquarius, this is something really new and really different. And it can bring up stuff that feels deep and old. Pluto pulls up messes that we put away and has us look at them. Pluto brings things to the surface to be healed, right? I mean, it's actually a great example of how the astrology can feel good or be good, but actually feel kind of challenging. Pluto can really do this. Um, so that Pluto stationing retrograde, turning retrograde right now can be bringing in some heavier, deeper, older parts of your life and yourself that are coming to the surface to sort of be healed and worked with. And I think that that is important to mention in terms of what's going on at this time. I also just wanted to mention in terms of today, if you're watching this live, if you're watching this on May 8th, and if you are, and if you're enjoying this video, if you could give it a like, I would really appreciate it. I haven't done a video like this before, so I'm not really sure how it's working. So if you do like it, if you could give it a like, that would be encouraging. And if you don't, feel free to leave a comment as well. I'm really excited to build this channel sort of together. So I appreciate any and all feedback. Today, if you're watching this on May 8th, I just want to mention that the moon, after coming into that new moon aspect and being conjunct with the sun, moves over Uranus and then over Jupiter. So that's sort of interesting. All this morning, right? Really all in the next few hours. So moon going over Uranus can be something a little bit surprising, emotionally surprising. The emotion can feel like, whoa. But then right after that, the moon going over Jupiter can feel sort of expansive emotionally. And I think that will feel positive and feel like a little bit of a relief, right? So all of this Taurus goodness, it will manifest. It is coming to the surface. It just takes a little bit of time and it might not feel the way you expected. Another thing to mention here is that as the moon moves out, it's going to come into a sextile with Neptune over in Pisces at that 29-degree point. And actually, Neptune at 29 degrees of Pisces is another kind of newer, heavier thing that's happening in the sky. It sort of reminds me of this Pluto retrograde. That Neptune can be very watery. It can be sort of fuzzy and hazy and confusing. I'm thinking of the water and I'm thinking of like tears with that, you know, and release through tears. And sometimes that can come up, especially just in Pisces, 29 degrees. It's like, this is such an interesting period of moving into the new era, letting go of the old era, putting things down that don't work anymore and coming into something new. And of course, that's a good thing, but does that always feel easy to move out of one era and into a new era? It doesn't, you know? Then I just want to mention, beyond today, the sun for the rest of Taurus season will then do that same dance, right? Will go over, Jupiter's going to move on to Gemini as well, but the sun is going to then go over Uranus and make that sextile to Neptune and conjunct with Jupiter. Let me pull some dates for some of these things. The sun will conjunct Uranus on May 13th. The sun will conjunct Jupiter in Taurus on May 18th. And I don't have a note for that sextile to Neptune. Oh, yes, I do. Maybe not. But it would be right at the end of the season. It's going to be right before the sun moves on to Gemini. So right at the end of Taurus season, it comes into that sextile with Neptune. So, looking to see if there's anything else significant from this list. I love the full moon in Sagittarius on the 23rd. You know, these lunations really are so positive and can't help us astrologers but to notice that. And I think it's good for us all to notice that as individuals as well, but not hold onto it too firmly, just like anything with astrology. Maybe this is a good time to sort of transition into this next section of the talk of this video where I want to talk about sort of the role of astrology. You know, I think one thing that I worry about starting this channel is that I really do think that astrology is just a tool that we use. Oh, that's better. Keep forgetting to do that. My apologies. I really think that astrology is a tool, just like so many tools that we have, to help us learn more about life, about ourselves, to introspect. The work is to be present in our life, to be growing spiritually, to be developing ourselves, to learn how to navigate the roller coaster of life as effectively as possible, learning how to be true to ourselves, right? And astrology is one of the tools that we can use to help us get there. And it's interesting when you have something like a YouTube channel, it's all about astrology, right? But astrology is just a small part of what I do to try to learn that roller coaster of life and how to navigate it better. And I know that that's true for so many of you too. But I think sometimes we can all kind of lean a little too much into the astrology if you're into it. And if things feel really watery and confusing, like they might with a Neptune at 29 degrees of Pisces or Pluto stationing retrograde for the first time, it can be easy to try to make some sense of it by looking more and more at these kinds of things. But I think we always want to sort of hold it with an open hand, not a clenched fist. And it wasn't, astrology wasn't developed for us to be afraid or be anxious of the astrology or to hope for and be excited for the astrology. It's for us to see, oh, that's a little hint. Okay, that's a little indication of what this is. So if you're in this new moon season, if you're in this Taurus season and it's not going as well as you'd hoped, is it possible that knowing that this is a very positive season astrologically overall, can that help you to trust that even if things are a little bit difficult right now, it ultimately is for the good and that it is leading you to a better place? That you may be working on some things, Taurus, that where you resist change. And so suddenness, especially with Uranus here, can feel a little jarring. We're working with really deep stuff with this Pluto. It's emotional with the Neptune. The moon's making all kinds of aspects just after the new moon. But can we trust a little bit that those 2 weeks are sort of opening up in a more positive way? Just like anything in life, astrology is something we have to work with consciously. It's a relationship that we develop with astrology. It's not a one-way thing. It's not something we rely on, right? Just like in a relationship, you don't want to rely on someone else. You want to be independent, but also sort of healthily interdependent, but not codependent, right? And it's sort of the same thing with astrology. We don't want to look to it as like a father figure who's telling us what's going to happen and telling us what to do, and we're just like relying on that. Instead, we need to really take responsibility for managing our lives ourselves, making good choices, being ourselves, healing what needs to be healed, right? Please know that I am not saying we have to try really, really hard all the time to show up perfectly. Not at all. I think we have to try, I think we have to relax and show up as ourselves, not try hard and be our best. You know, I think we need to relax and trust and keep growing and keep getting better and keep being honest. And I think that astrology can be a tool to help us do that. And I think that this season is a good time for that as well. So that is sort of the way that I try to work with astrology. I also think that it is a good idea once in a while to take a break from astrology. What I do as an astrologer is I try to give myself at least 1 month per year where I don't read charts. So obviously the charts of the moment are still in my head. I know the cycles and what they're doing, but I don't do readings during that time, and I don't pull charts. And it's just kind of a break, and it's a way of breaking that cycle. If you are a little bit, overdoing it or anything like that, I think it's good for that reason as well. But it's also just a tool that's meant to be put down once in a while. Um, yeah, you have to stay grounded when you're working with things that are so ethereal, and that can be difficult sometimes. But I think that if we do it consciously, it's pretty easy. So just making sure to um, take walks in nature at this time, cook and eat good food, meditate, things that ground you. Those are wonderful ways to work with Taurus season. Taurus is a great time to go a little slow. Slow down and do it calmly, right? If you're having any conversations that are important at this time, remember to breathe and to go slow. And emotions are contagious. So if you're calm, it helps to make other people calm. If you're anxious, it makes other people anxious. And Taurus season can really remind us how to bring in that steady ease, even to places where even at times where things are shooken up and where things happen quickly, we can still bring in that slowness and that calmness, and it can help us. So I think that's about all that I have for you today. I'm looking to see if there's any questions now, and I do see a few comments. Hello, Scorpio. And then I see Simply Me here is a Libra. I wonder if you're a Libra sun or a Libra rising. Sometimes it's a good idea to look at, if you know your rising sign, look at horoscopes for your rising sign. If you don't know your rising sign, reading for your sun sign is great. But if you're sort of at that point where you're working with your rising sign, it can be a great idea to pull charts for your rising sign. I think I'm mentioning that Simply Me because I'm a Libra rising. So that's the sector of the chart where this is hitting for me, which is the 8th house if you're Libra rising, or if you're reading for your Libra sun. And it has to do with transformation. So transformation can be a little bit challenging when it's a Taurus ruled sector of the chart. You know, we want to transform in like a very slow, steady way. But with this aspect, the transformation might come in a little bit more suddenly, and that can feel a bit jarring. Yes, I see your birthday here. You are a Libra sun. That's wonderful. And then there's someone here who is from Italy. Hello, my background and my family is Italian, and I love Italy, and I've been there, and it's wonderful. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. And what I just said about Libra rising applies to you, and Simply Me, it applies to you as well. It sounds like you're working with your sun sign, and so reading for your sun sign is great. I just want to thank you all so much for being here. Please give this video a like if you enjoyed, or subscribe to my channel. You can also book a reading with me on my website, which is astrologywithgina.com. And just thank you so much for being here. Is there a positive outcome in love for me? You know, we have been working with that so intensely, Libra risings, because for us, everything over that's been happening with that Aries sector of the chart related to those eclipses was in our 7th house, which rules relationships. So there's been so many relationship things changing, but of course there's positivity in love areas to come for you. I think right now is an amazing period of change, and it's setting us up for a new cycle. And always life is trying to bring us what we need, you know, and especially where love is concerned. Love, real love heals, real love is out there for all of us. And I think sometimes things have to be cleared for new things to move in. The path can be rocky. Sometimes it doesn't last forever, but I think it certainly makes sense that you'd be asking that question because that seventh house sector of your chart has been very activated. And so just keep slowing down and breathing into it and being present with what is and recognizing the good that is all around you, being grateful for what you have and being true to yourself, being true to what you know is true. Listen to your instincts. If something feels good, move towards it. If something feels bad, move away from it. I will say though, sometimes love can be triggering, right? So sometimes something can feel uncomfortable, but that doesn't mean we need to move away. But you can usually suss out that difference. And I completely understand, and I'm sending you love and light and all of anyone out there who's been having a little bit of a challenging time. Meditate, take deep breaths, model for other people how to be calm. It'll help you to be calm. Be in nature. Talk to somebody who you can really trust and who you know has your back. And then don't worry about it. Don't worry that you talk to them. Let yourself be yourself. Let yourself be a little vulnerable. And yeah, just keep going. Life sometimes isn't always easy, even during periods that are supposed to be easy, or even during periods that are mostly easy, or when things are changing and shifting. But I think we always want to be trying to find those points of stability within ourselves. I do think ultimately, as much as love is a wonderful thing in whatever form it comes in with others, right? Romantic love, friendships, whatever, any kind of relationship. But ultimately, the relationship that we have with ourselves is so, so important. And maybe ultimately that's what all these other relationships are about anyway, And so I think that the more we work on ourselves and relax with ourselves and love ourselves, as cheesy as it sounds, the better. And that's easier some days than others, and that's okay too. And I'm glad that you found this a little bit helpful. I found it a little bit helpful too. So I hope you all are doing well. Keep going, and thank you very much for watching, and I'll check in again soon.